Hey guys, I'm Phoenix here and welcome to a quick video about the EU. It's probably not going to end up being a quick video, but I'll try and keep it as condensed as possible. So, first things first. Britain is issuing a referendum in July I think, June possibly. Soon, anyway, it is soon. To find out whether or not the people want to stay in the EU or leave the EU, and as a result we have two large campaigns that have been set up by both sides, and both of them are using very fearmongery tactics. Now, Sargon Ricard did do a video that was leaning very much towards one side. It's one of the few videos that he's done that I haven't necessarily agreed with, because if you're going to do a video highlighting one side, then highlight the other side as well, because neither side is particularly good at telling people the truth. So yeah, we have these two factions that are basically using very fearmongery tactics to try and steer people towards their side. Now, the vote leave side is possibly the side that I've got more problem with. Now, I will say that I am biased in this, because I do believe that Britain should stay in the EU. So I am at odds with Sargon Ricard in this, that I do very much believe that Britain is stronger in the EU, and if we think that something's wrong with the EU, then maybe we should actually try and change it. We have an awful lot of power. Britain has full veto power. So if Turkey, for example, wants to join the EU, Britain can say no. Any country joining the EU has to first follow the check sheet. Now, they haven't, they've still got human rights issues. They've still got issues with civil war that's been raging for who knows how long between Turkey and the Kurds, who want their own country ultimately. They want Kurdistan back. So they've got that to deal with. So Turkey has an awful lot of problems of its own, and as a result it's not ticking all the boxes on this check sheet that would actually allow them to apply to become part of the EU. So when the Leave side stands up and says, if we don't leave the EU, we're going to get all these immigrants in from Turkey, that's a complete fabrication, because A, Turkey is not in the EU, B, Turkey may not even be able to join the EU due to their current problems in the country, and because Britain, among other countries, has full power of veto. And I don't think there's a C, but you get the idea. Turkey is not going to be an issue. Ultimately, if people want to come into the country, then I do believe that it's better that they come through the borders, legitimately. Britain is an island, but that doesn't mean that people don't get in illegally. In fact, it could weaken our borders even more to not be in the EU, because there is an agreement between France and Britain that Britain can have border agency on French soil. So the border agency can catch immigrants trying to get in illegally before they have left French soil, because once they get onto British soil it's quite difficult to get rid of them, because they don't carry any documentation. It's very difficult to know where they've actually come from. So yeah, so that's immigration. They're also using a lot of figures which don't make a lot of sense. They're using this 350 million a week figure, which is wrong, because it would be 350 million a week had they not negotiated it back in the 70s, a rebate of over 100 million. So Britain is paying less than actually 250 million a week, which still sounds a lot, and it is. But on top of that, also, Britain gets subsidies and grants from the EU towards areas such as agriculture and science. So, actually, that figure goes down even more. Now, I don't know the exact figures of actually how much we're technically paying. And obviously, those grants and subsidies are being aimed at very specific industries. And then we kind of get to the last sort of big issue that I've got with the Vote Leave campaign, is the NHS. So, if you're watching this from another country, you may not know what the NHS is. So the NHS is Britain's healthcare system, and it is free for everyone, for general healthcare. And dentists you still have to pay for, but it's subsidised by the NHS, except for the people who don't have to pay, in which case they don't have to pay for anything. Some people get free dental care if they are part of one of, I think there's 10 or so categories of people who don't have to pay for dental care or for prescriptions. Now, this is actually quite a good thing, because it means that you can have an accident, you can be taken to hospital, you can be fixed up, and there won't be a bill for you to pay at the end of it. Technically there is a bill, it's paid for by everyone, it's not technically free, it's part of taxes and national insurance. So it's something that working people pay into. But it means that if you have a problem, you can just go to the doctor and you can get it fixed. There's no sort of concern about how much it's going to cost, and that's ultimately a very, very good thing. On the NHS, I have had 2 echocardiograms, 2 x-rays, one on my shoulder and one on my hip, because I was suffering from partial dislocations. I've had vaccinations, I've had physio, I've had all sorts of different types of medical care that's all provided free at the point of sale, as it were. Now, the NHS is being hammered at the moment, and this is because it was never really designed for the amount of people that live in the country. A lot of hospitals were built at a time when the areas weren't so populated, and so you will see various hospitals, especially in London, where you've got the hospital, which is built on pretty much all the land that it has, and it's completely surrounded by houses and shops and industry and whatever, because the hospitals were put in at a time, they were designed for, say 100,000 people, and now there's almost 1 million people living around there. And this is a time when actually we need to be building more hospitals, not less. Problem is, all of that takes money. Now, the Leave siders have said that if we leave the EU, we can take that £350 million a week that we pay to the EU as part of being in the EU, and we can put that into the NHS. Except there's a few problems with that idea. Firstly, vast majority of the Vote Leave side don't actually believe in an NHS. The lead guy on the Leave campaign once went on to Fox News to say that the NHS was a catastrophic failure and that America should not follow down Britain's path. They should not have socialist healthcare. So that's one slight dodgy thing. The second dodgy thing is, of course, we're not putting £350 million into the NHS. We would actually be putting in a lot less than that. In fact, quite a lot of that money would probably just end up being lost in the mix. So yeah, that's another sort of small issue with it. The third small issue with it is that actually, if you go into a hospital in Britain, you will find that there's quite a lot of foreign doctors and nurses there. Now, if we were to leave the EU, all those people would then have to apply for a permit to work, some kind of a visa. And would they all be? Would they be eligible for it? You know, the Leave side, one of its main sort of things is the whole immigration side of things. So what happens when if we were to leave the EU and we were to stop people from coming in, and if we were to eject people working in the country, who would do those jobs? Because they are quite skilled jobs. It's not like working in, I don't know, packing up boxes in Amazon. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that. So we would suddenly have a lot of jobs vacant, which I don't necessarily think that Britain would be able to fill. I don't know, ultimately. You really can't tell. There is a large amount of unemployment in the UK, but would that be fixed by leaving the EU? I'm not completely certain it would be, personally, because a lot of the people who are out of work, they are people who ended up being made redundant from fields that were taken over by robots, for example. So we might have an awful lot more people who were, they trained in welding up cars, and suddenly that's not really a job that is particularly easy to get. They may be skilled welders at welding cars up. Now, although there will be welding jobs out there, they may not actually be near where they live or whatever. This person is very skilled at welding stuff up, but you can't really take that person who's spent most of their life welding and put them into working in a nursing home. It's two very, very different jobs. So yeah, there's an awful lot of stuff to consider. Repercussions from leaving the EU. And I'm not, I don't want to say, Britain will be ruined if we leave the EU, because I'm not completely certain that they would be. It would be tough, though. There would be an awful lot of moving things around, and possibly even looking at renationalisation of various aspects of the UK. Things like rail and steel and coal and all that sort of thing. We might actually have to look at getting those under government control, so that the people aren't shafted by people, leaving the country. It's just, yeah. What I would say, though, is actually have a look at it. Now, I'll drop a couple of links into the description of Infax, and Infax are a little bit more. They are definitely on the side of the side of things, but they do pull out the side of the Leave campaign which are being insincere, I guess. So yeah, that's what I've got to say on the EU. Obviously, it is a bit of a point of contention at the moment. I am looking forward to seeing what Sargon has to say on his actual proper video on it. He does do good videos, and they tend to be reasonably balanced. It's just that one that he released, I thought, was very much biased on the side of of the Leave side. And I will end with this, actually, because I will end in the same way that Sargon ended. In that, he said that the only politicians that he trusts say that we should leave the EU. Now, I will counter that and say that the only politician that I trust, which is Jeremy Corbyn, says that we should stay in the EU, but we should try and fix it. I'm all in support of that. If something's broken, let's just fix it. So yeah, thank you for watching this video on the EU, and I will see you for more gaming stuff next time or on the next stream or whatever. So, see you later.